Well, good morning. Good to see you all. Look up at the moment. What can you see on the ceiling? A star. Really good. George, this is looking good. We have a congregation today that can answer questions. That's an important part of how we are looking to proceed. Now, I've asked Jeanette to come and set up a little nativity set on the table for us a moment. And it might be she could enroll somebody in providing some assistance just in getting that sorted out. Well done, Esme. That's what we needed. This is something that in our household comes out of the loft every year just before Christmas. And we open up the box and it's set up. And then in a few days' time, it would all get packed up in the box and go back into the roof until next year. And at Christmas, there's something about familiar processes we follow through. We do the same sort of things. We follow the same patterns. For some of us, it's been possible for family to get together, which is wonderful. For others, it can be time of real struggle and a sense of loss they may have experienced, or a sense of loneliness. But we tend to come together and sing some familiar old songs before it all gets packed up again till next year. And I'd like to have a bit of a fresh look at one aspect of Christmas today, because the other thing we do is we compress timescales at Christmas. How are we getting on, Esme? Is this
nearly finished?
Doing all right? Great. We compress timescales. You'll know that a sort of 9-month pregnancy seems to take about 2 minutes when you just read it through together in the Bible. And things like the visit of the shepherds to the manger is something that happens, and often coinciding with it, you find wise men there. It can be good sometimes to go back and see what the Bible actually says, rather than the pattern we've created around it. And what I'd like to do today is have a fresh look at the visit of the Magi, the wise men, and to see whether we can find some relevance today, something that influences what we do and what we're going to do. Also, I've been quite busy, so I've not really prepared this talk. I've just got a set of questions. I'm hoping this can be a congregation sermon. So I ask questions, you give the answers. George has already decided what 3 gifts he can bring. Quick typing, concentration, and half-decent spell check was his answer of the 3 gifts he can bring. So as you give answers, George will begin to put something together on the screen for us that constructs what we're going to do and what we can do together. Within all of that, there's something about what gifts we could bring that I hope would be in our minds. So if you've come in and had a piece of paper with what gifts can you bring, it may be during the course of your production of this talk, you think of something that you can bring that you would want to offer to God. It might be something like George can offer quick typing, concentration, and half-decent spell check. Or it might be something completely different where you feel God is challenging you as to what you can do. Now, it is possible, if you don't like listening, or you like to be able to do something while you're listening, that you'd like to produce a little gift box. So actually, particularly over that side, there's glue, scissors, and some guidance, so you could produce a gift box. So if you're more interested in doing that while you listen, please do so. As we look at Christmas, and particularly look back on what we're celebrating last week, there's something about the context of it that matters. I believe that God created the earth and everything in it, and each one of us. I believe that God sent Jesus, his only Son, as a baby placed in our hands. And then as Jesus grew and lived out and modeled a life of trusting in and following God, I believe he died on a cross, and I believe he rose again, and I believe he sends his Holy Spirit today to live in me, to live in each one of us that invites us in, to help us to live like Jesus, to be like Jesus. As John was suggesting to me earlier, a song came to my mind, or some words of the song that began to summarize some of that. And this was a song by Marilyn Baker some years ago. God came among us. He became a man. Became a baby, though through him the world began. He came to earth to bring us joy, but where is that joy today? And it can be found by those who will let him direct their ways. I want to invite God's Holy Spirit to direct my ways so that I can be more like Jesus and know that joy in my life. So the message of the Magi and the things that come across to me. Now, I'm giving you some clues before we start here, so this should help you to be able to find some answers. They were seeking, they brought gifts, and they came to adore. And we find that in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. We can see those simple things, and we could do the same today and any day. Seeking Jesus, the Messiah, the Savior, the one who can transform lives. Offering our gifts to Jesus and living lives of worship, just as we see through the wise men. What it doesn't say, we'll read through it, but watch out for this. Again, I'm helping you with your answers so that we don't find there's a deathly hush when I ask a question. What Matthew chapter 2 doesn't say is that there were 3 of them. Listen when we read it together. It doesn't say they were kings. It doesn't say they arrived at the manger. And it doesn't give their names. There's a whole framework that we can create around what happens at Christmas that carries a number of things into it that the Bible doesn't actually say. So today I hope we can focus on the words that are there. So this is about the visit of the Magi. They were, wise men is a good description. And we'll read that together. I hope you'll join in with me in reading this. It's Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. And George is going to put it on the screen for us so we can read together. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who was born King of the Jews? For we observed his star in the east and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." King Herod secretly called for the Magi and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in the east, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Okay, let's go for a memory test on this one to see what you can remember out of that. Who were they? Magi, thank you. I'm getting a good answer. I didn't hear anyone say kings, so you've been paying attention. That's great. Can anyone tell me anything about Magi? It didn't tell us that, but is anybody knowing something about Magi? They came from the east. Thank you, Matt. They looked at the stars, studied the stars. If you read around it a little, it says they're astrologers. Now, somebody here will know, I'm sure, what God thinks of astrologers, because if you read through the whole of the Bible, and particularly in the Old Testament, God's not all that polite about astrologers. Anybody want to tell me? Okay, people who seek to read the future and what's going on out of the stars are very much condemned by God in the Bible. He expects us to seek from him his plans, not from anywhere else. And it's interesting that even though these people are not behaving the way God would want them to, yet still God can show them something special. So astrologers, wise men, a band of scholars, not perfect followers of God, but people willing to seek, seeing that something is going on. So what were they looking for? Thank you, Matt, Messiah. George, you can have that one for your list. Thank you. Any other comments? The King of the Jews. Thank you very much, Rosemary. So they knew they were looking for somebody special, somebody transformational. There is a word that the passage we read used about that person. And when Herod sought from his clever people, the scribes and so on, where the king might be born, he was described as being something that has more to do with the earlier part of it. Can you remember the word used in the passage? Shepherd, thank you. So actually, it says he would come as the shepherd to his people. So the king is not just a king, but he's a shepherd. And that follows on from the story that we were hearing only last week about the shepherds that God spoke to. So people from lowly and no great circumstances are ones to whom God can speak and does speak. People who may be seen as being important and significant in their communities, God can speak to them. You don't have to be perfect and right with God for him to be able to speak to you. What had caught their attention? What led them to go seeking things? A star. An interesting element to that. There's something about creation that can speak into our circumstances. I'm going to ask Mark a question in a moment, I'm sure. Let's think about that. I might be taking you out of order a bit, George. I hope not, but it would be good if we could show a video that just presents a few verses from Psalm 19 that speaks about the glory of God seen in creation. Could you find that and play that video for us, please? The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies show the work of his hands. Day after day, they speak of him. Night after night, they reveal what God has done. Their silent message reaches the whole world. The God who made the stars leads us to Jesus. Right through the book of the Psalms and much of the Bible, creation displays something of God, and people who seek to understand what's going on in creation can find something that speaks of God, even if we don't understand the detail of it. We can see in the beauty of a flower. We can see in the actions of a child. We can see in the stars above something that speaks of God's glory. And so these wise men, the magi, astrologers, could see that God was doing something and wanted to find out more about it. What we also read is that Herod was afraid, and all Jerusalem with him. So what was he afraid of? There you are, Mark, one for you. Losing his power, there's a good description. Anybody else? What was Herod afraid of? Sorry? An uprising, okay, different approach, yes. Jamie? Yes, lost his power, thank you.
Someone taking his place.
Thank you, Matt, someone taking his place. So all of these things come out of the sense of threat that there could be somebody new coming. It's interesting that in all that Herod saw was the power and the potential loss of that, and the words of the people who spoke to him saying, a shepherd, somebody who cares for the people, didn't feature in his concerns. So he wanted to stop what was going on, not to find the way forward. He wasn't ready to embrace and engage with what God was doing. He wanted to prevent it. Okay, then some simpler questions. How many wise men were there? And thank you. We don't know is the answer. 2 works perfectly well. It's interesting that somebody was ill last week for the nativity. And we had 2 wise men. Really cleverly done, 2 wise men. I don't know how you know. We know there were 3 gifts, but that might have been brought by 2 or 12 people for all we know. It does make sense. There may well have been 3, and they brought 1 gift each. But that's not something that is made clear by the text. And where did they go first? The palace in, where was it? Jerusalem, thank you. You're doing well, thank you very much. So they go first to Jerusalem. Actually, they go to the wrong place to find what they're seeking. They actually go for what might be obvious, yet God moved them beyond that. They were then told where to go. The Old Testament said God had a solution, and this would come from Bethlehem. So the studies, when they went to Jerusalem, demonstrated Bethlehem needed to go to. And who did they find? Oh dear. Steve, speak up, please. Mother and child. It's interesting that the Bible always presents it child and mother. They found Jesus with his mother. And they found them in do you remember? In a house. Yes, full marks down here. They were in a house. They weren't in a stable. And if you look at the timescales of the whole thing and Herod's action to seek to close down all that was going on, if you continue on through chapter 2, you find that Herod seeks to kill all the baby boys up to 2 years old in Bethlehem. So that would give an understanding that probably the wise men arrived at any time up to 2 years after Jesus was born. So when we compress it all into Christmas Day, we might be cheating a little bit. But it's interesting sometimes to read the Bible for what it does say rather than what our patterns and what we usually do demonstrate. So the child Jesus was with Mary, his mother, in the house within that sort of time scale, sometime 2 years afterwards. And if you asked my grandson, who's into these stories at the moment and keeps reenacting the nativity, using animals from his farm to play the parts because we don't have enough people in his farm. He's very keen on the angel telling Mary and Joseph that it's time for them to go to Egypt. So they moved on. So this brings me really to the three core actions, the 3 steps that we see there. And George has been typing away, trying to keep up with things. But first of all, the 8 magi were seeking Jesus. They didn't know it was Jesus, but they knew God was doing something special. They wanted to engage with and find out about what was special there. They brought their gifts. In their instance, it was, you can tell me because this is familiar to us all, they brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. My question for each one of us today is, what would God want us to bring? It might be quick typing, but it might be other things that God would have us bring. And that little slip of paper you had coming in, or that you could catch up with if you want to, or if you don't want to write anything down, that you can just settle in your mind. What is the gift or the gift you would want to offer to Jesus today? What is it that you have that is special that you would bring and offer? There are some good lines in some Christmas carols quite often. I think it's In the Bleak Midwinter has quite an all-encompassing answer. Does anyone want to suggest some things that we might be able to bring? We've had an example of some with musical gifts people have brought, with singing that some people can do better than others. I'm not at the top of the singers list ever. Our devotion, thank you, Pat. Give him our hearts now. Keith has been listening to the carols. Well done, Keith. Thank you very much. Anything else? I don't have to hear. It's God that we want to share those things with. So we can bring our gifts. And the other thing they did was, it's a long time ago since we read the passage, wasn't it? They worshipped. When they recognized Jesus as God's gift to us, God himself placed in our hands, they worshipped Jesus, recognized his worth, his value. They wouldn't have understood what would come next, and his life and his death and his resurrection. But when they went searching and found Jesus, they knew that was what they'd been sent. That was who they'd been sent to find. So how can we be like the Magi today? Are we going to pack up Christmas and put it in the box, as we will for this set for next year? Or is this something that's going to continue into the new year? Are we seeking Jesus? We don't need to answer that out loud, but in our hearts, let's think, are we seeking Jesus? What gifts can we bring? God's gift of Jesus is to those who will simply receive. All we need to do is receive what God offers us. We don't have to do anything clever. We don't have to be good enough. We may be in a complete mess in our lives, but Jesus still says, I'm here for you. God's gift is to those who will simply receive. What is our gift to Jesus? Now, if you have written something on a slip of paper and you want to come and identify that, then in a moment, just wait for a moment first, please, I invite you to just come and place that in the box we have here. Nobody's going to go through those. This is just something between each one here and God. Nothing more than that. You don't even need to come forward to do it, but sometimes an action reinforces a decision. So if something God has said to you means there's something you want to bring and offer to God, mark it by putting that in the box. If you don't have a piece of paper and you would like one, then Matt will come to you. And if you're without a pen, we can also get a pen to you to help you to do that. But I'm going to ask George at this point, thank you for all your typing, George, if he would play a song with the lyrics so we can see the words of those songs. But it is about bringing our adoration to Jesus. And as that's played, if you would like to bring forward what you believe you could offer, please use the box there.